The politics of following Trump to the brink is a very real thing, as we've seen Republican after Republican parrot his ideas when it comes to vaccines and mask mandates, or still not being able to accept the 2020 election results. Republicans who think that they have a shot at higher office or just want to hold on to their current office are following the Trump playbook. And that includes Texas Governor Greg Abbott. But he is about to be tested. According to Axios, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke is preparing to challenge Abbott for the governorship and is set to announce his decision later this year. According to the latest Dallas Morning News poll, O'Rourke has managed to narrow Abbott's lead in a hypothetical matchup. In July, O'Rourke was lagging by 12 percentage points. Now, Abbott only leads O'Rourke by 5 percentage points. And when it comes to how Texans feel about the direction of their state, 54% say the state is headed in the wrong direction. Only 45% say it's on the right track. So the governor's race in Texas will no doubt serve as a litmus test to see if Abbott made the right bet in following Trump's ideologies to the brink. Joining me now to discuss is Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and founder of National Voter Protection Action Fund, Don Calloway. So, Representative Reynolds, I want to ask you first, what do you think about these reports that Beto O'Rourke might be throwing his hat into the race?
Charles, it's great to be back with you. I think they're very credible. Beto O'Rourke has continued to raise his profile. He's been very active and engaged, like someone who is running for statewide office when it came to supporting the quorum break, when it came to COVID vaccine preparation and voter registration. He seems like he is running for statewide office. So I think it's a great idea. I think he would bring some excitement right at a critical time when Governor Abbott has never had this low of an approval rating. Texans are kind of fed up with his far right, pro-Trump rhetoric, and his platform has been almost exclusively a red meat, very, very conservative base. He's losing independents and moderates by the day.
So, Don, you know, the moment that O'Rourke throws his hat in, if he does, it nationalizes this race in a tremendous way. This will no longer just be about Texas. Money will flow in, you know, by the boatloads into Texas on both sides to see if they can unseat Abbott, or if, you know, Republicans and conservatives can hold on to Abbott and his very divisive and extreme slate of policies that he is advocating right now. How do you think that this would play out in the end if O'Rourke throws his hat into the ring?
That's a very good question. Ultimately, it's the question of whether or not Beto O'Rourke has done the organizing work since his last loss. Beto O'Rourke has run very, very strong statewide before in running for a Senate seat. I think it's actually far more exciting for him to wield the executive authority of a governor's seat rather than just being one of 100 had he beaten Ted Cruz in the United States Senate. But if Beto O'Rourke was smart, he would have harnessed the donor power and the lists and the data from his Senate run and even his presidential run, and he would have organized those individuals and those communities, particularly the Latino communities, that we don't always win, if we're being honest, and Representative knows that. But you've got strong urban bases in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and other cities. But you've got to organize communities throughout the state, particularly rural communities, and let them know that this far-right Republican agenda is not in their best interest, but we've got to organize Latino communities. I hope that Beto has been doing that work, and I would like to think that he's a sophisticated enough politician with a sophisticated enough political organization to know that he has had to harness that energy over the last 4 or 5 years since he's been a national name. He can't just throw his hat back into the ring without having laid that track. I'm excited about Beto, but I'd be far more excited about Representative Ron here with us now, a good brother like Chris Holland, somebody like that, giving it a statewide go. I think it's time to refresh the base and give new entrants, particularly all the talented, dynamic Black folks down in Texas, an opportunity to run statewide, even for governor.
Ron, I think Don Calloway just threw you into the race. Are you about to run for governor?
Well, I appreciate Don's sentiments, but certainly Beto O'Rourke has built up a statewide national profile. He has the name ID that you need for someone like Governor Abbott, who has a tremendous war chest. Even though his numbers are in the tank, he has over, I think, about 50 million in his campaign war chest. If I'm understanding, his last quarter he raised about $18 million. So you need someone that can raise that kind of money, that can be on the national scene, that can raise money across the country to kind of catch up to that largesse that Governor Abbott has. But I really believe that the time is right. These policies have been very divisive. It's deplorable what Governor Abbott has done in terms of his lack of leadership. He's at a race to the bottom when it comes to COVID, when it comes to critical race theory. I mean, he's done everything to the far right. People in Texas are sick and tired of it. They're fed up with it. We lead the nation in the highest number of uninsured. Black women lead in maternal mortality. We don't believe in climate change or science. We instead of common sense gun reforms, we have this constitutional permitless carry, basically an abortion ban. I mean, you name it. And then on top of that, to add insult to injury, voter suppression. So Governor Abbott has certainly went in the wrong direction on so many issues. We're not focusing on fixing the grid. We're not focusing on access to health care. We're not focusing on keeping people safe, and children and schools and teachers. So there's a lot for Beto O'Rourke to run on that will appeal to working families and many independents and moderates. Governor Abbott has a shrinking, very far right base that he's catered to. That only helps you in a Republican primary. About 5% of Texas vote in. So there's a lot of room for for Beto O'Rourke, and I'm excited that he would consider it.
So, Don, one of the last things that we saw Beto O'Rourke doing publicly was participating with William Barber in this kind of Selma to Montgomery style march for voting rights. Texas has passed one of the most restrictive kind of voter access laws in America. Does Beto have a shot if the federal government does not step in and protect access to the ballot across the country, but also in Texas?
He does have a shot. Ultimately, you have to take the fight to two parallel fronts. Number one, Kristen Clark and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has to challenge these things in court. Sherrilyn Ifill and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund have to bring their challenges in court. The Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. So you have the legal challenges on one side, but on the other side, the good saints in Texas have to go not weary and well-doing and keep fighting, keep organizing, because if you don't get these laws knocked down, if you don't get the rules changed by the federal courts, you have to continue to organize to educate people about the new requirements for voting, educate people about the early voting times having been restricted, educate people about what type of ID is required at the ballots, and even get people those IDs well in advance of voting. The war is won in peacetime. The great Muhammad Ali said that I win the fight long before I dance in those lights. I'm running on the roads. There's nobody around me. And that's the type of organizing and structural infrastructure building mentality that not only Texas Democrats, but national Democrats, particularly in these red states, have to take to winning these statewide elections. Stacey Abrams was doing the Stacey Abrams things for 15 years before anybody knew who Stacey Abrams was, because I was a state representative like Representative Reynolds, watching her build that infrastructure along with so many organizers down in Georgia. So this is the time to do it. By the time you get ready and ramped up in election season, the fight is lost. So I know that good Texans are down there organizing. I know they've been talking about taking Texas blue for a solid 20 years now, and it is doable because Texas is not red, Texas is unorganized, and y'all have an opportunity to do some great things.
So we end with Don Calloway quoting a full stanza of Muhammad Ali. Don Calloway and Representative Ron Reynolds, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.